I want to say to those who are coming from Montserrat and Barbados, welcome to Antigua. Let me from the outset say that I feel a very strong connection with what the Caribbean Broadcast Media Partnership has been doing successfully over the last several years. As you know, I'm a licensed medical practitioner myself, and the thrust towards HIV reduction and or elimination in the Caribbean is a mission that we all must have a very keen interest in. There is no doubt that the awareness in the Caribbean has increased in the last several years, and I want to commend Dr. Leacock and her team and Mitzi and Howard for the I Live Up campaign. Your work is exemplary. I also want to commend Mrs. Eleanor Frederick, who I see here this morning, for her very quiet but very focus-oriented work in Antigua. And I also want to say to Antiguans and Barbudans and to all that are listening to this particular remark that in Dr. Amina Goodwin you have one of the most intelligent physicians that I have ever come across. I happen to know Dr. Goodwin very well, and Antiguans are very privileged to have somebody like Dr. Goodwin back on our shores working with us. The issue of HIV/AIDS prevention is a complex mosaic that has a number of issues that one needs to examine. I want to say to you that there are economic factors, there are psychosocial factors, and there are behavioral factors that influence the spread of HIV and AIDS. And I am going to invite the media practitioners today to examine some of those factors and how you can educate and re-educate people about HIV and AIDS. And I want you to pay particular attention to the issue of the behavioral factors. And I don't know if Dr. Leacock plans on exploring this particular dimension. But the issue of behavioral change can only be addressed if you understand what are those economic and psychosocial factors that impact on people's behavior. Several years ago, a colleague of mine at the University of Oregon and myself conducted a very simple but effective study in Antigua, examining what were the attitudes of so-called, quote-unquote, middle-class Antiguans to HIV and AIDS. And many years prior to that, while I was a medical student, we conducted a study in all of the secondary schools in Antigua about people's knowledge and attitudes towards HIV and AIDS. I want to say to you that while there has been major improvement in the public awareness about HIV and AIDS, it is only through producing media content, television, radio, and print content that targets specific groups that we will be able to make a specific and direct headway and improvement in the reduction in HIV and AIDS. You would have heard from Dr. Goodwin this morning that 30 years on, there have been significant advances in the types of therapeutic interventions that are available. Clearly, the cost of HIV to the Caribbean is phenomenal, and the treatment of HIV and AIDS competes with scarce resources for chronic non-communicable diseases. And they too also have a behavioral component, or what we would like to say a lifestyle component. So this workshop is very timely. I congratulate UNESCO. I congratulate the Caribbean Broadcast Media Partnership and all the participants. I want to say to Dr. Leacock that we can play a role in Antigua if invited to do so. We will make resources available. But clearly, the message has to be shouted from the hilltops and your work, I'm sure we will see in the coming weeks and months. I was very pleased to see some of the media personalities and some of the big reggae stars and calypso icons promulgate this message. The reality is we live in a world where ubiquitous or double standard messaging could be impacting on how especially young people think. And we need to be very clear what type of signals we send to young people and middle-aged people and old people. And at some stage, a very thorough assessment will need to be undertaken of what it is that impacts on people in a behavioral context. You see, we have to place some attention to sociocultural norms and how those impact on what people do in the Caribbean. With those few remarks, thank you for inviting me here today, and I wish you a very productive and very highly focused 2-day session. Thank you very much.